You're listening to XVGM Radio. Welcome to XVGM Radio, where the bits keep coming. I'm Justin.
And I'm Mike.
And this is episode 32, Summer Jams with KVGM Radio.
And that's Summer Jams with a
Z.
Z.
Yeah, we have to be very particular about that.
Don't forget it. Don't you dare forget that Z.
I mean, I'm pronouncing it Summer Jams.
Like a bee.
But we are joined on this very hot summer day.
Oh my goodness. So hot.
By Hammock, a.k.a. Brennan from KVGM Radio. He is from the other side of the country, and I'm sure they are getting it just as bad as we are.
Yeah.
That's right. I'm over on the West Coast, and it is not quite as sweltering as the East Coast for sure, but the humidity's in the air. It's a little damp outside, but it's still pretty nice.
106 degrees today in my car, driving around, and probably felt even hotter than that because of the humidity.
Yeah,
which was brutal. It's so brutal. It was brutal.
McNoodles.
Yes,
you were on there.
Yes. So the track that we came in on was Brennan's pick, which is Maho Shoujo Fancy Coco.
I like it.
I know. For the PC 98, and it also came out on the PlayStation 1 in 1996. The track was called Summer, how appropriate, and it was by Ryu Umemoto. There is another composer that's listed under the soundtrack itself, but...
This track, we believe, yeah.
Yes. One of the reasons why we picked KVGM Radio is not just because they had a very similar call letter to us. It was mostly because of Brennan's picks on his show, which is a very
laid back.
It's like if we're the goofy, like, talk show, radio show that you hear, like, we're like the Howard Stern to his like, I don't know, Smooth McGroove. I have no...
Smooth McGroove, yes.
Yeah,
I like that.
I have no way to put that otherwise, but we really dug his show, and we thought he'd be a great co-host to have on this episode, a great guest. So we want to thank you for dealing with us for a couple hours.
No worries. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. So what made you pick this song other than the fact that it is very appropriately named Summer?
Yeah, I mean, I lean pretty heavily into the summer theme with most of my picks. You know, summer's the best when it's not sweltering heat.
Yeah, seriously.
Definitely.
I mean, secretly I'm a fall guy, but I don't want to really expose that here.
Ooh, don't tell anybody.
I know. But summertime is now, you know, breezy. Jazz is a staple of good summertime video game music, and Yumamoto is one of the best at crafting them. So, especially when it comes to, you know, magical girl simulators like Maho Shoujo Fancy Coco.
Yes.
Yeah, what is this game?
Oh, no, I mean, it's a magical girl simulator. That's all I could figure out. I think there's some dating involved, and you learn new spells. And
there's always some dating involved.
Yeah.
And if there wasn't...
PG-13 and beyond.
Yeah. So this, I guess, came out on a collection on the PS1 afterwards, or was it like a straightforward, like, port to the PS1?
Sure. Yeah, I'm only familiar with the PC 98 version.
Right. Yeah. This track just oozes summer to me. It's just so funky fresh. Right around that minute mark. The track is about close to 2 minutes long, but as far as like before the loop, but right at that 1 minute mark, it really kind of like amps up, and you get that really funky bass.
Yeah. That bass, not just a funky bass, but a slap bass, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's something that I talk about every time it comes up in a song, because it just really, really appeals to me. So, of course, as soon as I heard that, I was like, yeah, I like where this is going.
Definitely.
And it started smooth, and it stayed smooth. And, I mean, I don't want to make the butter comparisons, but I will say this... I'm not going to make butter comparisons. End of sentence.
All right.
This track was just really, really relaxing to listen to. Like, just lean back in your chair, close your eyes, and like feel like
bob your
summer.
Head. Just bob your head,
but just like feel summer from childhood or anything. Like, this is
good stuff.
Exactly what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And a great way to bring in the episode. So Ryu Umamoto, at least on our end, we did an entire episode on him, kind of like a tribute episode to his legacy.
Yep.
Most of the tracks were accurate as far as ones that he did. But definitely go check that out. What was that, episode 9? Yeah, episode 9, so go check that out. Now, do you play a lot of Ryu Umamoto on your show, since, you know, obviously his style is very funky fresh?
I've played quite a few tracks from him. Another PC 98 guy is Akira Sato. I play a lot of him.
Yep.
It just has a great collection of very smooth jams. A lot of jazzy stuff, so it's a wellspring of smooth.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
Absolutely. So we're going to continue with these summer jams all throughout this episode. We have a really interesting mix of music here, because Brennan picked a ton of super funky tracks.
Yep.
And then I kind of saw him, because he went in and picked his tracks right away. So I saw what he picked and was like, ooh, I'm going to pick some crazy funky tracks too. And then I kind of evened it out too with a little more floaty summery-ness in there. And then you kind of jumped in and you just went haywire with all sorts of like different types of music and styles, and I think you kind of went with the musical aspect of what summer would sound like.
A lot of my picks were based more out of games that relate to summer in some way, shape, or form.
Sure.
I tried to go with songs that made me feel that felt like summer to me, but I will say not every track out of the 3 that I picked exactly like evokes summer. But I'll go into a little bit of why I chose the tracks that I did.
Awesome, very cool. So let's jump into our first pick, which is actually going to be round robin. Obviously, our guest of honor, Brennan, will go first, and then we'll move on to Justin, and then myself, and then we'll circle back around. We've got 9 additional excellent tracks for you to hear, starting off with Brennan's first pick. What do you got for us?
This is from the PlayStation 1. The game is Ida Kute, Your Smiles in My Heart, and the track is Summer Sea Event 2, and the composers on the soundtrack are Shoichiro Harada, Noburo Sakaku, and Aya Sakuma.
All right, let's hit it.
That was Summer C, Event 2 from the PlayStation 1 game Aidakude, Your Smiles in My Heart. It was released in 2000, and the composers on the soundtrack are Shoichiro Harada, Noboru Sakaue, and Aya Sakuma.
This was such an 80s laid-back track.
See, I felt like it was more, it had like a 70s disco feel to it. Like, not like disco, but like late night disco.
Yes. Well, I'm thinking early 80s.
That's fair.
So still
late
in
70s,
that
early
disco.
80s.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't going to fight you over that. I was just like, you said 80s, and I was like, no. Like, I literally just wrote down disco. But
No, I totally agree with you, though. It has that early, like late 70s, early 80s, especially with that lead string synth. That that is very disco era.
Yes, that's what I was hanging on.
Mm-hmm. I think it's cool to listen to this type of like throwback music because you don't get a lot of music that sounds like this, especially nowadays. This is a very like iconic era of music that you really don't hear too much of outside of video game music, because you do get a lot of this in video game music with certain composers like you know, your Jake Kaufmans, you know, those types. So
yeah.
So why this track?
Well, to me, it has a little bit of that 90s, like there's like a 90s TGIF vibe to it, which, you know, of course reminds me of summer, you know, all that great American Prime summertime programming. So I don't know, a little bit sitcom-y, kind of like an intro to something.
Okay, I can see that.
Talking about like the do like
exactly.
Yeah, I can see it now. It's like in my head, I'm seeing like the opening of Step by Step flashing through. I'm like,
yeah, there you go.
He's right.
Yeah. No, I guess I could see that too. Yeah, that makes sense. Very cool. Do you have a lot of experience with this game, or when you pick tracks, are you more like, I'm going to look for the music first, then kind of worry about the game afterwards?
I don't worry about the game ever. I mean, I hardly have time to play actual games these days, so a lot of my time is just spent listening to soundtracks, and especially at work, I do a lot of writing for my job, so just throw on a random soundtrack, and then from there I'll pick these tracks and stuff that really just catches my attention and really sets the mood.
Very cool. So when you set out to do your own podcast, did you have anything in mind when you were creating it, or were you like, I'm just going to pick a bunch of funky tracks and kind of, you know, go with that, you know, whole like slick, cool vibe, you know, that summery vibe all throughout the episodes?
Well, originally I pitched it actually as a program for a radio station in Portland, Oregon, called X-Ray FM. So it was in the vein of KTWV, which was the wave in LA, and it was a smooth jazz station. So I wanted this to be a play on that, but with, you know, smooth jazz video game music. So very smooth tracks. And X-Ray actually picked up the show, but I ended up moving out of Portland, so it never came together. And then fast forward, and, you know, I decided it would be a good time to kind of try it out as a podcast in radio format.
For sure. I remember seeing your stuff like last year.
That was about November of last year.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, because I remember it was like shortly after we had started XVGM, and I saw a bunch of the VGM podcast community was sharing your podcast around, and I was like, whoa, wait a minute, this guy's biting our shtick here, and then
because we're the only ones who would ever think to do something VGM radio.
Right, exactly.
We were actually originally talking about being WVGM radio before we decided on XVGM, but we
totally
an original idea.
Yeah. And I think we were talking about FVGM radio or something like that, and then we also were talking about, I think at one point I think I was looking into heavily KVGM. But the reason why I think we didn't settle on KVGM was there was some other radio station that I found out there that was like a sports radio station or something like that.
It might be KGVM.
Yeah,
I know that's a real thing.
Yeah. So I saw that pop up when we were searching out for names on podcasts and radio stations, and I was like, whoops, can't do that one. But it's cool that, you know, you're covering a whole different spectrum that isn't really touched on. You're doing something completely unique and fresh, bringing a lot of really good music out into the open that's kind of buried away, especially in, you know, the PC98, Sharp X68000, like those types of game consoles and computer systems from the Japanese era.
I mean, there's a lot of great stuff on those computer systems, and you know, for me, I wanted to play video game music for people that don't necessarily like video game music. So I wanted sort of a branch into video game music that was, you know, smooth. I mean, a way to kind of say, okay, I could hear this on the radio, or you know, it's something I can dance to. There's a lot of like heavy chip tunes that are, you know, kind of crunchy and kind of turn people away because they're so so abrasive, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I figured this was a good way, and I just wanted to play a lot of tracks that I enjoyed over the years that I've kind of found in my adventures of listening and going down YouTube rabbit holes.
I think we've all been there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Half the time I'm doing research for this show, I'm just like, I lose a half hour listening to different things. I'm like, I haven't even picked anything yet. Where am I?
That's why you need a list
Yeah.
of tracks and just like post them. And what we have actually in our Discord group is I will occasionally post tracks that I really, really love that I'm like, I'm not going to use this, because we have a section in there that's share VGM. So people can go in, share whatever, video game music that they want to, share with other people or whatnot. And I tend to use that for a track that like I know I'm not going to use for a very long time, but I really want to use it like for a free picks episode or something like that.
Yeah.
It's cool.
That's actually what I should start doing.
There you go.
I have a handful of things that are always in my head, but I should get them out.
Yeah. So the composers on this one, can you tell us about them?
I've only heard of one of the composers before this, which is Shoichiro Harada. The other two I'm not really familiar with. Again, this seems to be another one of those simulator dating games, which is its own subgenre, and if you go too deep down that subgenre, you regret it. But yeah, I don't have a lot of information on the composers, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's honestly not too much for these composers. I mean, Noboru Sekue started off with Vandal Hearts in 96 as a recording coordinator, and then kind of moved up doing games like Poi Poi and Poi Poi 2. Also was a voice coordinator for Symphony of the Night, Castlevania. Kensei Sacred Fist. So pretty much working exclusively with Konami, all the way up to Dance Dance Revolution Third Mix, where they did sound product management. They're labeled on this as a composer, supposedly, but most of their work is in voiceover, recording direction, coordinator. So there is a possibility that maybe they stepped in and did composition on this, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, and Aya Sakuma also looks to be a Konami composer, starting out with music composition in 1999 on International Track and Field 2000, and then they did Beatmania 2DX 5th and 6th style. They are listed as composers on both of those games.
Cool. And then the final composer is Shoichiro Hirata, and they started off with Gambare Goemon Uchu Kaizoku Akogingu. So that was in 1996, and then they continued with the Beatmania and Dance Dance Revolution series, and then did some arrangements for Samurai Warriors, the very first one in 2004.
Very cool.
Yeah, so I guess we'll move on to your first pick.
This is a game, I don't think anybody would question why this is on a Summer JAMZ episode, but the game is Super Mario Sunshine. This was released on the GameCube in 2002. The track is Sky and Sea, and it was composed by Koji Kondo and Shinobu Tanaka. Welcome back. That was Super Mario Sunshine, 2002 GameCube release. The track was called Sky and Sea and was composed by Koji Kondo and Shinobu Tanaka. And, I mean, Super Mario Sunshine, definitely like a summer type game. Takes place outside in the heat. You got a water pack. Who doesn't want to, go outside and play in the water in the summer?
You mean who doesn't want to clean up paint spills?
I mean, hey, you're looking at the wrong piece of this.
Mario Sunshine is a interesting game. I remember when this game came out and people did not like it.
I was going to say, this was a polarizing game.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe not so much anymore, but I know when it came out, people were a lot. I knew a lot of people who were just like, "This is not a Mario game." Turns up nose.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that said that, but it's funny because with the way things are with the internet and everything nowadays, like the younger generation, they tend to have their first game systems be either like the GameCube or the Nintendo 64,
whatever was out when they were old enough to start playing.
Right. Very similar to us. As far as like the NES goes, because that was, my first system, and yours was what, Intellivision?
Intellivision, yes.
Yeah. And what about you, Brennan? What was your first console?
Probably the Nintendo, the original Nintendo.
Okay.
That I can remember. I think my sisters had an Atari, but I didn't play it, or at least I don't remember playing it. But yeah, the Nintendo.
Cool.
Nice.
So I feel like the younger generations like love this game, and I'm obviously not speaking for all of them, but
right.
I tend to notice when you ask somebody who's like maybe in their 20s about Super Mario Sunshine, they'll be like, "It's the best Mario" or whatever, and you're like, "No, that is Mario World."
Yeah, I mean that's sort of what it comes down to. I mean, I feel like this is a really good game. So this is your introduction to Mario. It's a lot of fun. It's really cool. And then if you then explore and discover the rest of the Mario traditional platformers, they're also really cool. But I can see if you're introduced to this first, it's a fun game.
Yeah.
Mario's a fun guy.
He's a good guy.
He eats a lot of mushrooms.
That little Mario guy, he's a good guy.
Laugh at my joke. Now, as far as the song itself goes, one of the reasons that I picked it is I like steel drums, but there's not a whole lot of stuff that I really like listening to steel drums in. But this track, it's so super chill with like the background, like arpeggios going, and the sort of lazy steel drums being played, or the steel drums being played kind of lazily. And it's another one of those tracks where I can sort of close my eyes, lean back, and just feel like I'm relaxing in the summer.
Yeah, it's one of those songs that just when you think of swimming, this is what I hear.
Okay.
Like if I was good to go like deep sea diving or whatever underwater, or even if I was just swimming around in a pool with, surrounded by a bunch of like kids screaming and stuff like that, like a community pool.
Okay.
Like this is what I would hear.
Yeah.
Just go under. Whoosh, doo 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 doo. Yeah. So.
Fair enough.
Yeah. What about you, Brendan? What are your thoughts?
Sounds like classic beachy Mario music to me. I mean, I never played the game, but there's a very calming energy about this track. And I watched a video of where this is in the game, and apparently Mario gets stuck inside of a giant pachinko machine.
Oh yes, this is one of the most frustrating parts of the game.
So it's like a very chaotic stage, but the music is like very tranquil, so it's a good juxtaposition.
The game takes place on a tropical island called the Isle Delfino.
Yep.
And Mario is on a plane visiting or headed to this tropical island on vacation with Princess Peach and, for whatever reason, Toadsworth and 5 other toads. Like, come on. They're trying to have a romantic getaway and Toadsworth has to ruin it. Like everything. Toadsworth. There's a villain that appears that looks like Mario, and they're calling him Shadow Mario. You end up finding out that it is, I believe, just a baby Bowser, which this was his first wretched appearance.
Is this? Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, you hate him so much.
I'm not a fan of Baby Bowser, which we talked about on a couple episodes back on the Mario RPG episode.
Yep.
So, yeah. Peach gets kidnapped, I think. I'm almost positive she gets kidnapped. I mean, it wouldn't be a Mario game without it, probably. But she gets kidnapped by Shadow Mario, and Mario gets this device called the Flash Liquidizer Ultra Dousing Device, also known as Flood. It's basically a giant water backpack, and it's kind of like Mario's answer to Luigi's vacuum. if you will.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, this was all that same sort of era, right? The Luigi's Mansion.
Yeah, it was GameCube.
GameCube, yep.
Yeah, this came out like 2 years after the. Yeah, 2 years
Nintendo
after.
suddenly had an
Luigi's
obsession
Mansion.
with taking their two flagship characters and saying, let's not do what we've done successfully in the past. Let's do something completely different with these guys. Let's strap stuff on their back and make them shoot or suck stuff.
That's hot.
Just such a weird decision. I mean, I'm not gonna complain because both those games turned out to be pretty iconic.
I don't kink shame, man.
I mean, that too? Question mark.
The Flood is interesting. You can upgrade it and add in all these like cool things like rocket power boost things where you like shoot up into the sky. Later on in the game, you get Yoshi, and I never got Yoshi in this game. I got really far in this game, but I think I got to a point where like you could unlock Yoshi if you did like this, and that or whatever, and I just couldn't do it. So I gave up on the game pretty easily, unfortunately. The whole point of the game is you have to clean up the island from all this paint that Shadow Mario's leaving behind with his paintbrush.
Right, and the reason you have to clean it is because you're being blamed for it.
Right. So they're like, you gotta clean up this mess, Mario, you rapscallion. And
rapscallion.
And he's like, Mamma mia, pasta fajoule. Yeah. Anybody got any pepperonis? I don't know.
All right. As an Italian American, I'm offended, so I'm going to move this along right now.
Hey, I'm just saying stuff that Mario would say, all right? He's the one that's always like, Mamma mia. Don't blame me. Don't shoot the messenger.
You're so insensitive, Mike. But no, seriously, it's a neat idea for a game and very, very interesting in just its controls and everything else, because it's not like, I mean, it's even a departure from Mario 64 that we had previously.
Very different from all other Marios.
Yeah. But a little bit about these composers. I mean, I don't know what there is left to be said. Koji Kondo, who did everything ever for a Nintendo first party.
Mario and Zelda, pretty much.
Yeah, some Donkey Kong stuff in there too.
Pilot Wings. He did Pilot Wings.
Yep. He also did music for Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess, which was one of my favorite Zelda games, actually.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
And then Shinobu Tanaka had started out doing music in Luigi's Mansion in 2001.
Cool. So a newer composer.
Yeah. And then this game came out in 2002. Mario Kart Double Dash in 2003. Mario Kart DS, as we've spoken about before, my favorite Mario Kart game, 2005. And then We Play in 2006.
Very cool.
Yep.
All right. Well, it looks like we are getting a phone call on our caller requests hotline, so we may as well take that call. Caller, you are on the air with XVGM Radio with special guest from KVGM Radio. Who's this?
Umihara Kawase Sushi Grill. Umihara speaking. What can I get you?
You called us.
Yeah.
No, you call me.
Okay, well, how about 2 strawberry daiquiris delivered to the XVGM radio station? And Brennan, what would you like?
Can I get an Arnold Palmtree, please? That's 1/2 lemonade, 1/2 green tea.
Ooh, that sounds delicious.
All right.
You're just ordering drinks? Fine. Play me Kawanabe's theme from Umihara Kawase on the Super Famicom.
Yeah, sure, we can do that. And thanks for the drinks. So we're going to listen to a song from Umihara Kawase, and that came out on the Super Famicom in 1994. This track is Kawanabe's theme, and it's by Masahito Nakano and Atsuhiro Motoyama and Shinji Tachikawa. Thanks for joining us back on our Summer JAMZ with a Z episode with our special guest podcaster, KVGM Radio, also known as Brennan, also known as
Hammock.
Hammock, yes. Did you pick is Hammock's your handle? Is that like a reference to like an actual hammock, like hanging out like between two trees in a hammock?
Absolutely, yeah. 2 palm trees, just hanging out in the hammock, listening to smooth jams. So
that's what I was gonna say.
Super chill.
Yeah.
I bet he just drinks like whatever he just ordered from Umehara Kawase like all the time.
An Arnold Palmtree. That does sound good.
That sounds so good. Okay, so anyways, that was Umehara Kawase on the Super Famicom, and the franchise itself, which we'll talk about in just a second, is pretty much exclusive to Japan as well. Just got its first game a couple weeks ago in North America.
Oh.
Yeah. This track that we just heard was Kawanabe's theme by Masahito Nakano, Atsuhiro Motoyama, and Shinji Tachikawa. So this started off as a franchise that began in 1994, and there's a big focus on speedruns with this game. A lot of speedrunners do check out this franchise and do play it quite often. It's a game where it's kind of like a puzzle platformer where you're like trying to figure out on this very like islandy looking kind of levels where to go. You control Umehara Kawase. She is a sushi chef, as you just heard from her calling in, and she is the main character in this game. She uses rope physics with this, like, it's like a harpoon or like a hook that attaches to platforms, and then you can use that to swing. There's a lot of like physics involved with it, kind of where you can like use the physics to get to different platforms and whatnot. You could use it to attack enemies and kind of take them down. I don't know about the older games because I've never played any of the other games other than the newest one, which I got, which just came out
on the Switch, right?
Yeah, on the Switch, came out, published by Nicholas or whatever. The game has, for the most part, pretty simple controls. You can run, you can jump, climb onto ledges, climb up ladders. The hook is like a fishing line, is the best way to put it. So throws the fishing line and then hooks onto either like platform or a surface or something like that, or an enemy, which a lot of the enemies are like fishes. You know what I mean? Stuff like that.
Chef, I get it.
Yeah. In the newest game, you can cook sushi and cook all different like dishes and stuff. So you collect all this stuff and then utilize it throughout the game. I'm not really sure what that does. Again, I just got the game fairly recently, but it's pretty neat. I'd like to play the Super Famicom version. I believe it's kind of pricey now. It did get ported to the PC.
Yeah, it's on Steam, I was gonna say.
Yeah, and what's nice is there's no slowdown from the Super Famicom version on that version.
That's how I play most of my Super Famicom games, with slowdown.
Yeah, I know, right?
Like, can't play Gradius any other way.
The slowdown's like kind of a focus. Like, would you agree, Brennan?
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
So have you played Umehara Kawase, or have you heard of this franchise at all, or its music, Brennan?
I think so. I think I've heard of the music for this soundtrack. I've listened to it, and it's great. I mean, there's a lot of like happy, sunny day themes. This one in particular, I mean, this track makes me want to go to the park and have a picnic with all my little animal friends. I haven't played the game, so I can't really speak to the gameplay. Yeah,
it's for the most part fairly simplistic, but it's the simplicity of it that pushes people to speedrun these games.
Yeah.
And there is like a way to like replay the levels, if I recall, where you can try to consistently like get better runs in the game. So
that's really cool. I'm sure they eventually realized people like doing the speedrun stuff, so they probably made it more accessible to that genre or that thing.
For sure, I am totally with Brendan on this one. Teddy Bear Picnic all the way.
Yes.
I was borderline thinking this is a spring song because it is like, you know what I mean? That it does have that really cheery, floaty, happy kind of sound to it, but at the same time I'm like, well, yeah, summer is just like spring but like beefed up. Yeah, like summer is the result of spring going to the gym for 3 months, working out hardcore, and then just like, I'm gonna melt your eyeballs out of your sockets. Like, that's, summer. I am not a fan of summer, for the record.
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, I
hate bugs. I hate sweating. I'm just not a fan of summer. I don't know.
Growing up, I always used to love summer, and I still do to a point, although some of these days are just way too hot.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if I had a pool, I wouldn't care as much. And growing up, I always had access to a pool.
So you were the pool kid.
Yep. If it was hot, I just got in the pool, and it was fantastic. and I miss that.
Yeah, see, I did not have a pool, so I basically sat in air conditioning all summer. Did you live in the West Coast like for your whole life, or did you travel out there for business, or what did...
I actually grew up in Texas, so summers in Texas were a nightmare. And you had to have a pool, or you had to have really strong AC.
Right.
And the best was the combination of both. You go in, you jump in the pool, you run inside, dripping wet, and just sit in the AC. Because the humidity just sucks the life out of you.
Yeah.
And so it's not fun. But you make the best of it, because when you're growing up there, you get used to the heat, and then you just run around outside and do whatever you want to do to stay cool in the meantime.
Yeah, definitely.
Here in the West Coast, it cools down at night, so it'll go down to the 60s, and you'll have a nice breeze. And in Texas, when it cools down at night, it gets down to 80, so it's still no relief from the heat.
Yeah, you still have a lot of humidity even at the night in Texas, I think. But West Coast, it's more of a dry heat.
That is Umehara Kawase, and as far as the composers go, we can dive into them really quick. Masahito Nakano worked on the first Umehara Kawase, as well as one of the sequels or rearrangements called Shun, which came out in 1997. Also did Shijo Saikyo League Series A Striker in 95 as the music composer for that. I believe that is a baseball game. Atsuhiro Motoyama did a lot more, starting off with Digital Champ in 1989, doing sound on that, as well as Boomer's Adventure in Asmic World, the Game Boy game that came out in 1989. We're going to jump ahead to The Adventures of Star Saver in 91, and then jumping ahead again, Bloody Roar in 1997 for the PS1, as well as the sequel, Bloody Roar 2. Then did a Game Boy Advance game called Kuru Kuru Kururin. It's a fun little puzzle type game.
We've talked about that before,
Yeah, I believe it's a Game Boy Advance, like marble-based game. And his final game was in 2017, so he's still at it today with Fire Pro Wrestling World. Did background music and sound effects. Final composer on this one, Shinji Tachikawa, started off with Widget in 1992, followed up with Umehara Kawase in 94, and then was also on that same baseball game and Umehara Kawase Shun in 97. Pretty much had nothing going on until Glory of Heracles in 2008. That was the DS game that came out, which was like a remake of that. And then I guess they jumped on to Nicholas or whatever, doing Code of Princess in 2012, Yumi's Odd Odyssey in 2013, and last but not least, Blade Strangers in 2018, another game. This may be a reference for the Umehara Kawase series, because Umehara Kawase showed up in Blade Strangers. So that is technically the first appearance of Umehara Kawase in anything, because Blade Strangers came out on the Switch and the PS4 and everything. It's like a...
Anything you mean on our side?
Yeah, on the North American side.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, because this game, Blade Strangers, is a kind of simplistic fighting game that came out on the Switch and the PS4, and you could play as Umehara Kawase along with a bunch of other Nicholas characters, like Cave Story characters from Cave Story, Binding of Isaac, Shovel Knight's in it too. Yeah, it's pretty neat. It's a fun little game, but it's better with friends.
Yeah. Very cool.
So let's move into our next pick, which is going to be Brennan's second choice. What do you got for us?
This is from the Sega 32X game Knuckles Chaotix. It was released in 1995. Sweet. The track is called Door into Summer, and the composers are Junko Shiratsu and Mariko Nanba.
Awesome. Let's hit it.
Hey everybody, it's your boy Knuckles. I got my own gym now, and a membership is at a year-round low price. Tired of walking around with your rotund Robotnik hanging out of those shorts? Want to catch some rays this summer and show off your rock-hard knucks for all the Princess Sallies and rouge the bats of Mobius? Head on down to my gym where we have state-of-the-art equipment. We're ready to sculpt your body so that all the honeys will come out to your party. Don't be afraid to show off your Chaos Emeralds on the beach after 1 month working out at my gym. You'll be more super than Sonic. Join Knuckles Gym today for 100 rings down and 10 a month. 1 year contract required for all new members. Don't forget about Chili Dog Fridays, where 1 Friday a month we offer chili dogs for all your hedgehogs. Act fast. This deal's gotta go by September 23rd.
That was Door into Summer from the 32X game Knuckles Chaotix, released in 1995, and the composers on that track are Junko Shiratsu and Mariko Nanba.
Such a groovy little song.
Yeah. That's actually all I had written down. Groovy. With a lot of O's.
Like Earthworm Jim, or like
no, like Ash.
Like Ash.
Like groovy.
Yeah. From Evil Dead.
Yes.
Groovy. Yeah, not groovy.
Definitely not groovy.
And not groovy. And you know, you hit the button and you could just keep making him say groovy.
You would.
I do. I do, and I'm not sorry for it at all. What about you, Brennan? Did you, when you played Earthworm Jim, did you hit the button, like keep hitting it to make him say groovy multiple times?
I do remember that. Yeah, I remember him saying that. I don't think I did it multiple times though.
Oh, okay. I'm just the weirdo then.
Missed out.
Yeah, sorry, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I knew it. So this game, Knuckles Chaotix, an interesting little title, which is kind of outside of the spectrum on these.
Yeah, this game was really interesting.
Yeah.
This is the one where it was 2 people that were like linked together with those ring things, right? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's pretty neat.
The Gator, he was from Chaotix, I believe. Right?
Yes. Mighty the Armadillo is in the game as well. Kind of feel like this is right around the time when they just ran out of ideas for characters. Shortly after that, they did Adventure and Adventure 2, and they were just like, how about a bat with digital giblets? Yeah, sure, let's do that. And how about a rabbit named Cream? Yeah, why not? Let's just throw that right in there. I don't know.
Is that where Cream came from? She was in
Cream the Rabbit? Yeah. No, so I was referencing Rouge the Bat, from Sonic Adventure 2. Yep. And Cream the Rabbit came from Sonic Advance 2. But my point is that, you know, this is right around the time when they were like, let's just make whatever. SBO the Chameleon, Knuckles obviously in the game, and then Vector the Crocodile. Cool designs of characters and everything, like the visuals were really cool. But yeah, this is a neat game. It almost works like a pull and push in a way, as far as like the chain, because Knuckles has the chain and then he's kind of pulling the other character along with him. You could do like wall jumps and stuff. I guess you can get up to 5 playable characters in the game. So you got SBO the Chameleon, Mighty the Armadillo, and Vector the Crocodile. Vector can do like air boosts and climb walls, but Mighty can do just like wall jumps, and then SBO the Chameleon does running like up the walls and stuff like that. Yeah, it's pretty neat. Yeah. There's some other partner characters as well in the game. I don't have that much experience with this one. I remember playing it because a mutual friend of ours, our buddy Eric, is obsessed with this game. He loves it. I mean, and I mean, you know, that's cool. I mean, I appreciate his fandom for Knuckles Chaotix. I just personally could never really get into this one, but to be fair, I didn't spend enough time with it, so I don't know, have to give it a second chance, especially with the soundtrack. Really good stuff.
From what I've seen when he's played, it's very different than the Sonic game.
It is.
There's a whole different like momentum to them and whatever else, but that's this track though. What brought this track to our ears, Brennan?
You know, Sonic the Hedgehog always reminds me of summertime. You know, the color palettes are always so bright and cheery, and the music is very chipper, and this is like the perfect intro into summer. Although we're deep into it now, but it's a good track to play as, you know, springtime is winding down and the days are getting warmer.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that.
I never actually owned a Sega console, but my friend did down the street, so I remember going down to his house and playing the Genesis and playing Sonic and not being very good at it at all, but still just, you know, it's fun because the music really just pushes it along and all the bright colors and everything. So yeah, it's just reminds me of summer.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. And I kind of share the same sentiments. I was a Nintendo kid growing up, didn't have any really Sega consoles until the Dreamcast. That was my first Sega console. So going back and playing all these types of games on the Genesis, the 32X, the Sega CD, etc., really kind of opened my eyes to what the systems were capable of doing. And one thing that always kind of blew me away was how fast these Sonic games are. And
yeah, agreed.
Really could never do anything like this on Nintendo. Sure, you could come close to it, but I feel like the actual speed without the sluggishness is just so much better on the Genesis. You know, and most games that run on the Genesis typically, as far as the processing goes, run a little faster on the Genesis and have less slowdown.
Yeah.
They may not look as pretty, but, you know, they run typically a lot cleaner because of that.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
The composers on Knuckles KX, Junko Shiratsu and Mariko Nanba. Junko started off with Outrunners in '94, so definitely started off with Sega, coming out with a bang. Also followed up with the Hybrid Front. Pretty neat game that has some cool music. Formula 1 World Championship Beyond the Limit in '94, and then followed up with Knuckles Chaotix, Panzer Dragoon 2 Zwei. Is it Zwei or Zwei? I think it's Zwei.
Zwei? Well,
Zwei? It's oh, okay.
ZWEI?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Zwei, yeah. Then followed up as a composer for Daytona USA in 2000. Different Daytona.
I know.
But still. 100 Swords in 2001. Nightshade in 2003. That was the re-released Shinobi game that they came out with on the PS2, but then they made a sequel called Nightshade, where you play as like a female ninja. Yeah. Kunoichi, if you will.
Kunoichi, yeah.
Yeah. Astro Boy in 2004, and then Phantasy Star Universe in 2006 did sound effects for. And Mariko Nanba started off again with Sega under Worldwide Soccer Sega International Victory Goal in '95. I'm going to pick two more random games, starting with Sonic Rush Adventure in 2007 and Blinks the Time Sweeper in 2002. They did sound creation. So they've done mostly Sega stuff with stuff like Skies of Arcadia for sound effects. Again, Panzer Dragoon Saga in '98, and I'm breaking my rules here because I only said two. So
too late.
Yeah, too late. Last game, Fling Smash 2010.
There you go.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So what do you got for us?
So next up, we will hear a track called Banshee the Deathbringer, also known as Carmilla Fight. This was from 2003's Boktai, The Sun is in Your Hand. That was on the Game Boy Advance, and it was composed by Norihiko Hibino. Welcome back to our Summer JAMZ episode on XVGM Radio. Sorry, it's the last time I'll do that.
No, it's not.
We'll see. That game was Boktai, The Sun Is in Your Hand. Came out in the Game Boy Advance in 2003, and the track was Banshee, the Deathbringer, also known as Carmilla Fight. This was composed by Norihiko Hibino. So, this one, probably one of the tracks in this list that seems a little bit out of place, but I will tell you...
You think?
...why this is in here. This game had a thing on it. It was one of those games that had the solar panel.
Right.
If you remember those, like, 2 games that had the solar panel. Nah, there's maybe like 10.
There were definitely 2, because there was Boktai 1 and Boktai 2.
And then there was I
third
think Oracle of Seasons. No.
Mm-mm.
There was definitely some other game. Might have been one of the Pokemon games.
Oh, maybe.
But yeah, so they had the solar panel on them, and there were things that, if you were in the sun, that it did. And the main thing is charging your solar gun, which is your main weapon in this game. So this is the game that you want to take outside in the sunlight and play outside in the summer. With the spirit of the game, especially with like that solar gun and whatnot, it felt like a summer sort of thing. And then I listened through the soundtrack, and it's kind of like an adventure, like almost like an adventure RPG.
Yeah, like
style.
A top-down Zelda type thing. Right?
Yeah. But the music from it is kind of like adventurous and RPG, and this is obviously sort of an adventurous track. But this one in particular sort of reminded me of like the kind of music that I might hear in my head playing like in the woods with my friends as a kid.
Okay.
So
still kind of summer jam for you personally.
Exactly.
Okay, I could see that.
So,
Brennan, what are your thoughts on this one?
This track smells like danger.
Fair enough.
What is
mystery and danger, which all the best summers have. Just like in the Goonies.
What does danger smell like?
Fire.
Fire.
Yeah, definitely smoke.
Okay.
Yeah, wood smoke, and maybe some like damp limestone, from like a cave.
Okay.
Oh,
okay. Justin, what does danger smell like to you?
Danger to me smells like what the air smells like just before lightning strikes. I've been electrocuted more times in my life than I care to remember. So the smell of ionized air is burned into my brain.
Really?
Yeah.
My answer is going to be bee stings.
Ooh. How do you smell? What does bee stings smell like?
Like bitterness. It's like if you took honey, but poured molasses all over it.
Okay.
Yeah. There you go.
So this game,
Yeah.
for those who don't know much about it, so the story itself takes place at like the end of the world. I don't know that I'd call it apocalypse, maybe like mid-apocalypse. In the game they call it like the Age of Darkness. The story itself has like the undead are coming are rising up after the natural life cycle of life and death. Death was broken prior to the start of this game. People start dying due to the curse of this stuff they call dark matter, and the people that survived everything that was going on kind of became food for these zombies and whatnot. Of those that survived, the story is set in a city called San Miguel, which had already been overrun, and it's just like people are giving up on it. And the hero, Django, he's a mysterious boy, comes to sort of figure things out. He has the blood of vampire hunters in his veins, so like think Vampire Hunter D or
Right.
Van Helsing, stuff like that.
I remember this. I remember picking this game up
Oh, yeah.
when it came out.
Nice.
I just couldn't get into it.
No?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it was just too complicated for me. My tiny brain just wasn't feeling it.
Yeah. So that's fair.
Yeah.
But his primary weapon is this weapon called Gun del Sol. It literally just means solar gun.
Right.
And he powers it up and shoots it by going in the sunlight or just shining a light on the on your game.
A game that gets people out into the sun.
Yeah,
Interesting.
that was the idea.
Yeah. So the composers on this one, it's just one. Norihiko Hibino, right?
Correct. And Norihiko started out in the year 2000 doing a game called Metal Gear Solid, better known as Ghost Babel. This was the Game Boy Color Metal Gear Solid game.
Yes.
They've got a few things in here. Looks to be...
Mostly working with Hideo Kojima.
Yep, I was going to say a lot of Metal Gear and Konami games. Zone of the Enders in 2001, Metal Gear Solid, the Twin Snakes in 2004, Snake Eater, Boktai 2, Solar Boy Django, Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops, just all the Metal Gear Solid games after that, that first, the 2000. Most recently, doing music recording in Tekken 7 in 2017, composition Bayonetta 2 in 2014.
Yeah. It looks like they left Konami around the 2010 mark, maybe 2010, 2011, because they did Ace Combat Assault Horizon, doing the Endine theme. And then later on did composition for some games like The Wonderful 101, which is a Platinum Games game, Bayonetta 2.
Yep.
And then also doing stuff with like Atlas, like Persona 4.
Zone of the Enders' second runner, Mars, from 2018, is published by Konami.
Well, okay.
So, it was developed by Cygames, but also Konami Digital Entertainment. So it looks like they came back. But I mean, they were in an earlier Zone of the Enders. So
Sure. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Have you played this one, Brennan?
Have not, no. I haven't even heard of it.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. That means we brought something
new.
sunshine into your life.
Absolutely.
All right, let's move into my next pick. This is a obscure little gem from a game called Star Trader. This is a shmup that came out on the X68000 in 1989. The track is called Intention to Mystery Credit Roll, and it's by Hiroya Hatsushiba and Keiichi Yoano, and also Mieko Ishikawa.
listening to XVGM Radio.
Hey, you're back to XVGM Radio and our special guest, KVGM Radio, also known as Hammock, a.k.a. Brennan. And the track that we just heard came from a game that I picked called Star Trader. And this came out on the Sharp X68000 in 1989. It also saw a release on the PC-88. And we'll talk a little bit about that in just a second. The track we listened to is called Intention to Mystery, also known as The Credit Roll, and it's by Hiroya Hatsushiba, Keiichi Yoano, and Mieko Ishikawa. So I'm going to ask, since this track is very KVGM radio style, Brennan, what were your thoughts on this one?
Oh, yeah, this is such a sweet Miami Vice sound to it. I mean, like the perfect cigarette boat cruising music. So not necessarily racing music. You've already won the race, and now you're just cruising around, celebrating your victory. I really love that last minute and a half that kind of brings it to a close. And spoiler alert, on the last wave, we have a tradition of closing out each show with a staff roll. Definitely slated for a show at some point in the future.
Perfect.
Because it does have that great sound, the great smooth vibrations.
Oh, for sure. And you know, you've got that beginning kind of feel to the shows that you do, and then you've got that closure of that end track, that credits roll. So that this would definitely fit into your show for sure. I picked a good one. Yay!
Yeah. No, this one was really cool. Like, this is another one that, like, the only thing I could really write down as far as notes go was just groovy.
Yeah.
It was really just kind of like maxing and relaxing. And
maxing and relaxing.
I had to slip that in.
Chilling out, maxing, relaxing, all cool.
Yeah, that's the one.
So, Star Trader came out originally on the PC 88. This game was supposedly not so great. You play as this character called Kane, and he's the super great pilot guy. And there's some mysterious seal that you end up finding when you get approached by this little girl named Leffy. And so this is kind of like a mix of a text-based adventure along with a shooter. So there were games later on that were kind of similar to this, but went with the more like action-heavy aspects, stuff like Sigma Star Saga, which came out in the Game Boy Advance by Way Forward. But this game didn't really do that well in terms of reviews. A lot of people didn't like the shooter aspects of the game. But then it got ported to the Sharp X68000. They scrapped a lot of that adventure aspect about the game and really beefed up. Still had some cutscenes in there, but they really beefed up instead the shooter aspect of it. So the game is much tighter on the Sharp X68000 because it's a more impressive piece of hardware. Yeah.
I got you.
So yeah, it's just another generic run-of-the-mill Japanese shoot 'em up. So composer-wise, Hiroya Hatsushiba worked on audio for a game called Nuger. Ume Tokaze no Kodo in 1993. He did sound programming on that one. Tales of Fantasia in 95. Star Ocean, the second story in 98. He did sound and scenario programmer. So very heavily working with Motoi Sakuraba on stuff like Valkyrie Profile, Star Ocean Till the End of Time. His final game for audio was Baten Kaido's Origins in 2006. Keiichi Yuano worked starting with Neural Gear in 1990, did composition on that. Ruin Kami no Isan in 93. Mad Stalker Full Metal Force in 94, which I've heard has a great soundtrack. I believe I've heard some of it from some of the people that post on our Discord. Good stuff there. And Rima the Truth in 96 did composition on that, as well as the Asuka series, Asuka 120% Maxima Burning Fest in 95. Final game, which will jump ahead to Galgun 2 in 2018. They did the ending theme for that game. And I believe this is a Falcom shooter, so it makes sense that Meiko Ishikawa is part of this game. Started off with Ys the Vanish Omens in 1987, and followed it up with some Xanadu games like Dragon Slayer 2, Dragon Slayer The Legend of Heroes 2, Revival Xanadu 2 Remix in 95, and Revival Xanadu in 95. Mostly has been sticking with the Xanadu series, as well as Brandish, did Brandish 2 The Planet Buster in 93. The final two games were Legend of Heroes 4 Akai Shizuku in 96, and then Gurumin, a monstrous adventure in 2006, where they were part of the sound team. So now I guess we'll move into last round robin. So we're starting off with Brennan's pick. What's your final jam for us?
Cool. All right. This is called Summer Mirage. It's from the Sega Saturn game Mahjong Dokyusei Special. It was released in 1996, and the composers are Akihiro Akamatsu and Fumika Matsumoto.
Awesome.
Summer Mirage from Mahjong Dokusei Special for the Sega Saturn, released in 1996. And the composers are Akihiro Akamatsu and Fumika Matsumoto.
It was such a nice, relaxing track.
Yeah, so I've been talking a bit about, close your eyes and feeling like you're like relaxing on a summer day. So this one, I have written down here, semi-casual summer dance by the seaside. Okay. Now, if that doesn't make sense to people, I don't know if I can get better than that. Looking nice, but casually dressed, like a bunch of people just having a dance, like on like a terrace, on a cliff overlooking the sea or something. And it's just like, like martinis or daiquiris in hand and just dancing away.
This is Weekend at Bernie's mixed with Stranger Things Season 3 combined.
Haven't seen it yet, so I can't tell you.
I'm just saying.
But tell us about this song and this game, because this was really cool, and I'm curious as to your thoughts.
Mahjong is a very important theme on The Last Wave. We've revisited it many times. The music of Mahjong video games is typically very chill, very smooth. This track in particular it seems to me to be about playing Mahjong in some coastal town, probably under an umbrella on the beach somewhere in the Caribbean. But just definitely a beachy town somewhere down south where it's warm, you're drinking daiquiris, and maybe playing some Mahjong.
Very cool.
Okay, yeah. I dig it.
Drinking what was it? An Arnold Palmtree.
Arnold Palmtree.
Yes. So, now, have you played this game, or you're just like assuming that, based on the name and everything, that it's Mahjong and that it's, a coastal Mahjong experience?
That's what it feels like to me. I've never played the game, but the sound is very coastal.
Yeah, I could see that. I agree with that.
Yeah. I also have to just say I appreciate the choice of a Mahjong game, because I like Mahjong.
Yeah.
But like video games in real life, I actually have only played it once in real life. But the video game single player Mahjong game has always been something that I've gone back to.
Yeah.
Like that and lately Sudoku. Like I have a Sudoku app on my phone. But
nice.
Mahjong is my other sort of like sitting, just chilling, playing by myself game.
These types of games always have really great music, and this was a great finishing track of KVGM's to go out on. Definitely a lot less party vibe, and way more like just chill vibe. So
I totally agree.
Good picks. So the composers on this one, Akihiro Akamatsu, started off with F1 Circus in '92, Super Adventure Island 2. They were credited on that in 94 as the sound creator, or one of the sound creators, and Power Instinct in 1994. That was their final game where they were credited for sound. Again, we don't have a ton of credits for some of these Japanese composers. They're a little harder to track down and research and find details on, but we found some info for that one.
Fumika Matsumoto, I actually don't see anything on Moby Games other than there's an art and graphic credit that they have for Kingdom Hearts Unchained X in 2016. That's the mobile MMO thing.
So probably did do some form of either composition or arrangement for this, possibly.
Yeah.
So,
Hey guys, Janine's actually signaling me we have another call coming in. So
perfect.
Let's take this. Caller, you're on the air with XVGM Radio. What can we do for you?
Hey, I'm calling in to report things are good as we're wrapping up.
Pardon?
Just filing my end-of-day report.
To a radio station?
Oh, you're not waiting for a Thoroughfare Lookout to check in?
Not a radio tower, radio station. Yeah. Can we play you a song?
Well, I'm at Thoroughfare Lookout, so how about Thoroughfare Hike from Firewatch?
Yeah, sure thing. So that's going to be Thoroughfare Hike, which is a track from Firewatch, which came out in pretty much everything in 2016. And this game was actually composed by Chris Remo. Welcome back. That was Thoroughfare Hike, which was a track from Firewatch. Came out on specifically the PC, Macs, Linux, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and the Switch, all in 2016. And that was composed by Chris Remo. What do you think?
Now, usually there's something very tranquil about a summer hike. You know, I love to go hiking during the summer. But again, like there's danger lurking somewhere. This has a sort of an ominous, intense feeling. It's like a good horror movie soundtrack.
Mm-hmm. All it needed was that synth at the in the background, the kind of haunting, like duh. It just needed something really kind of sinister and devious in order to kind of fit that motif. I got the feelers on, and I feel what you're putting out there.
Yeah.
I do not like this game.
Oh, you've played it?
It is a walking simulator.
I mean,
which I am not a fan of.
Okay.
Yeah. But soundtrack-wise, it's pretty neat. I do really dig this type of relaxing track, and Brennan put it best. Very dangerous, kind of ominous, but also definitely campfire-esque.
Yeah. No, I got a lot of that with the acoustic guitar in there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really this whole thing sort of evokes camping in the summer for me. And I mean, for those who haven't played Firewatch, Mike calls it a walking simulator. I get it. The games like that can be a little bit boring. I actually kind of like them. There's also a game called Gone Home. I mean, there's no real danger in the game. Like the only way you're going to fail the game is to not understand how to progress in the game. But it's really just sort of, you know, you go through, you're talking to Delilah on the radio, and you know, she's letting you know what's going on, trying to have you help her get things in this park under control. The game takes place in 1988, actually, following the Yellowstone fires. Your character is named Henry. He takes a job as a fire lookout in Wyoming after his wife develops some things. You know, he and his wife are no longer together. I don't want to ruin the game for folks. But Delilah is, you know, walking you through, you know, what you need to do, how to take care of stuff, and there's this other sort of subplot that you learn about in the game, where like the last person who was in your position kind of disappeared, and something happened to them and their child, and that's sort of what makes these games interesting to me. It's not about, you know, the action or the platforming or the leveling up. It's about, you know, there's a mystery and there's a story here. And you're you know, working through to try to uncover what's going on and understand, you know, what the situation that you're in really actually is.
All right, but no enemies.
Okay.
Can't do it, man.
Can't
do it.
It's that whole thing of like video games as art. Like you watch a movie and
I get that.
There's no enemies that you fight,
sure.
But there is a threat in this game. There is something that you are wary about, and I mean, it's not just the fact that the entire forest can catch on fire.
Can you die in this game?
I don't think you can.
See, that's my issue.
Yeah.
There should be loss in a video game. There should be punishment. There should be defeat in a game. That's
a school of thought for video games. There's also the idea of telling a story, and the person wants to tell a story in an interactive way.
Sure.
I guess you could say defeat would be, you know, not being able to progress. Like you're not just fed everything. Like it's not like you're literally going from point A to point B. Like,
right.
In order to progress the story and uncover stuff, you have to do things, and you have to find things, solve puzzles. Like it's not quite Legend of Zelda puzzle solving,
sure.
But you need to understand what's actually going on. So you could call defeat just not knowing what to do next and just being like, I have nowhere to go, or
right.
spending 2 hours walking around the forest trying to find your next thing and then getting frustrated and giving up.
I'm the type of person where if I play a game and I am not having fun, in my personal opinion, what would fun be, within, I don't know, 10 minutes tops, I lose interest really quick. So with a game like this, I would be like, all right, so this is all you do? All right, I'm out. So that's kind of my perspective on it. But what about you, Brendan? What are your thoughts on walking simulators versus video games?
Versus a real life walking? I mean, yeah, why walk around in the woods when you can just do it in a walking simulator? It eliminates all the effort that goes into actual walking.
Yeah, no mosquitoes either.
Because, no problems. But I don't know. I mean, there's something about it that sounds kind of peaceful and calming. So I can see the appeal there. But yeah, I mean, living out here in the Pacific Northwest, I've got trees out my front door. So I'd rather just go take a nice 2-hour walk around there and maybe run into some danger, but probably not.
You have a similar situation here, Mike. Actually, you have literally a state forest right across the street from you.
That's true.
And I think there are bears in there.
There are.
Yeah.
I've seen bears.
Yeah, so Chris Remo has been around for a little while, about 10 years actually. They did music composition on Drawn to Life, the next chapter in 2009.
That's why I know that name.
Yeah. I also know them for some of their other stuff. They did 30 Flights of Loving in 2012. That was a Blendo Games release on Mac and PC. I mentioned Gone Home. That came out in 2013. They did the score for that game, so I already have an affinity for their music because I did love the music from that game. Again, another walking simulator, but very, very haunting.
Yeah.
And then they also did additional music on Gone Home was published and developed by Fulbright Company, LLC. They also have another game that came out in 2017 called Tacoma. Mm-hmm. And that game got pretty good reviews as well. I believe that is a similar type of a game, walking simulator.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So, what better way to go out on a Summer JAMZ episode than to hear a track from an Outrun game? Perfect driving music. Yeah. This is Outrun 2006 Coast to Coast. This is our final track of the evening. Came out on the PlayStation 2, the Xbox, and the PlayStation Portable, the PSP, in 2006. This is Passing Breeze, and it's the arranged version by Hiroshi Kawaguchi, also known as Hiro, Yasuhiro Tagaki, and Fumio Ito. right, welcome back to XVGM Radio, and you are joined with us with KVGM Radio, our podcast buddy from the West Coast. And this is our finishing track, our final song, Outrun 2006 Coast to Coast, that came out on the PS2, Xbox, and PSP in 2006. The track was a arrangement of the original song by Hiroshi Kawaguchi called Passing Breeze, and it was also composed by Yasuhiro Takagi and Fumio Ito.
Nice.
How could you have a summer episode with summer jams without Outrun?
Seriously, no. I'm glad that you picked this track, or I mean anything from Outrun, really, because as much as I don't do a whole lot of racing games, I do have a number of memories being in the arcades in the summer and just really like either watching people play Outrun, like Eric or other friends, or playing it myself and just like watching like all of the cool summer scenes that you drive through.
So this game is getting harder and harder to find, which is unfortunate because this is a really cool version of Outrun that they did. Sega put out a lot of really cool stuff in the 2000s. This game was probably one of their better racing games to come out during that era. So they also came out with Outrun 2, which I believe predated it, but then they came out with this one, which was like a pseudo sequel. Had I believe some of the content from Outrun 2, or included most of the tracks and most of the arrangements from Outrun 2. But yeah, Outrun 2006 is a lot of fun. It's cool because you get like a person that sits in the seat with you. I think it's like a girl that sits in the seat with you.
Oh, in the passenger seat?
Yeah, in the passenger seat, and you're driving around and everything, and she'll like yell at you if like you're doing terrible, if I recall. So yeah, pretty neat. I gotta track this game down because I remember I played it years ago when it came out, and then I was like, well, racing games, meh, alright, see you later, and just never came back to it, and it was actually a really good game. So.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised it's not part of like a collection. Or I
think it's a licensing thing with the cars.
Fair.
Because I believe they did have all the licenses for cars in that game, so I believe that's the reason why it's not. So, Passing Breeze, this is one of the tracks that was rearranged. Just to kind of touch on the composers, Hiroshi Kawaguchi started off in 85 uncredited with the Space Harrier soundtrack.
Oh, wow.
Yep, then jumped on to do, obviously, Outrun, Fantasy Zone, Sword of Vermilion, Rent a Hero, Metal Fangs in 93. They worked on Wave Runner in 96, Virtua Fighter 3 TB on the Dreamcast in 1998. Let's jump way ahead. Their final game, they were credited for Special Cooperation, which is Fist of the North Star, Lost Paradise in 2018.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yasuhiro Takagi worked on Shenmue 1 and Shenmue 2 as an assistant director and then sound section assistant in the second one. They are mostly credited for sound director or sound creation, but they do have music composition credits for Yakuza 4 in 2010. They did sound programming in Sword of Vermilion in 1989. In Virtual Racing, they did sound effects in 92. And the final composer for this episode, Fumio Ito, started off with Sega Super GT in 96, so they came in right around that Saturn era. Followed it up with Virtua Fighter 3 TB in 98, doing composition and sound effects. Shenmue 2, King of Route 66 in 2003, I believe that was a PS2 game. Virtual Quest in 2004, which I think came out on the GameCube and the PS2. Did a Daytona USA soundtrack in 2011, not the one that we're all familiar with. But, and then wrapped up with Hatsune Miku Project Diva Future Tone in 2017, doing sound on that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So Brennan, do you have any thoughts or memories of the Outrun games as it relates to summer?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, Outrun is a big influence on The Last Wave, my show. The aesthetic, the music, it's pure summer cool. And I remember going to the mall, drop me off at the arcade, and she would do her shopping, and I would just run around and play a lot of Outrun. I'm not very great at racing games, but just, the scenery and just sitting there with your girl at your side. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty sweet game, and that track in particular, I mean, it's a classic jam. But there's a Japanese jazz fusion band from the 70s and 80s called Cassiopeia.
Yes, I've heard of them.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Very Outrun sound, so very summertime jazz, and I'm always reminded of them when I hear Outrun tracks like this.
Very cool. Awesome. So we are going to go ahead and pick our favorite tracks of the episode. We do this every episode where we go through the list of all the songs that we played on this wonderful episode, and we pick our favorites. So we're going to start with our guest of honor, KVGM Radio. Brennan, what is your pick for best track?
Okay, so I love the Outrun track. It's classic summertime VGM.
Sure.
But I'm going to go with the Star Trader staff roll, the Intention to Mystery. I think cool is the perfect way to describe that track, and I think it was a great summer jam.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Justin?
So I am somewhat torn, but I think I have made my decision. The Door into Summer from Knuckles Chaotix, I really enjoyed that, and it was just a really fun, bouncy, hip track, but that's followed very closely by the Firewatch track that we played, Thoroughfare Hike. It really kind of evoked, like I said, summer camping, and that's really what I would like to go do at this point.
I actually really dig a lot of this stuff.
Right.
But, so, I'm going to go with Justin on this one. Knuckles Chaotix was killer. That was such a good song. Door into Summer, really good stuff. I'm going to follow it up with my Star Trader track.
That's fair. I did like Star Trader. It was a close third. We're all kind of agreed on that one.
Yeah, for sure. So, we want to thank KVGM Radio, also known as Hammock, also known as Brennan. Thank you so much for joining us on this Summer Jam spectacle. We really wanted to bring you on for this one because I feel like your podcast is perfect for Summer Jams, and I think we have shown that in this episode. So thanks for stopping by. Where can we find you on the web, or where can we access your podcast?
All right, well, thank you so much for having me on the show. It was a blast. And as far as the show, you can check out KVGM The Last Wave on iTunes. It's on Stitcher. It's on Google Play. 30 minutes of smooth video game jams.
Like pretty much all podcatchers are RSS feed.
Yes. Yeah. Wherever you can find your podcast, you'll probably find the show.
Yep.
You can reach out on Twitter at KVGM Radio, and then the website is kvgmradio.blogspot.com.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you. So, we'd like to take a moment to thank our Patreon patrons, without whom this show's continued improvement would be impossible. They are Alex Messenger, Scott McElhone, Cam Worma, Chris Murray, Kung Fu Carlito of the Heroes 3 podcast, Jordan and Anson Davis, Chris Myers, Peter Panda, Brad Austin, and the Autistic Gamer 89. If you would like to become a patron, you can sign up at patreon.com/xvgmradio. There you can see the different tiers as well. Just $1 gets you a thank you and access to our monthly live shows.
You can visit our website, xvgmradio.com, where you can listen to all the episodes and learn more about your hosts, as well as any of our guests or composers that we've had on the show.
If you'd like to reach out to us, you can always email us at xvgmradio@gmail.com.
And if you'd like what you've heard, please consider giving us a rating on iTunes and a review.
You can also join our Facebook group and chat with other VGM lovers at www.facebook.com/groups/XVGM Radio, where we talk about everything from current game news to sharing awesome VGM tracks, or just talking about the podcast itself.
And you can find us on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle for both of those sites is @XVGM Radio.
If you don't have any other social media or just want to try something unique, check us out on our Discord group chat. Links will be in the show notes.
All right. So, thanks again to our guest, Brennan, for joining us on this awesome episode. What do we got coming up in 2 weeks for episode 33?
So, episode 33, we're going to be doing a spotlight on a console. I don't think we've done this in a while since we did the Game Boy episode with Nico. And it's just going to be the two of us. We're going to be taking a look at everybody's favorite underdog that failed, the Sega Dreamcast.
Right.
And I don't say that maliciously. I do enjoy the Sega Dreamcast.
I enjoyed it. It was a great system.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun with it. So we have a special treat for you, which will debut a little after 2 weeks from our normal release schedule. You will hear this episode on the 20th anniversary of the Sega Dreamcast releasing in North America. It came out on 9/9/99, so we will be releasing it on 9/9/2019. Yeah. So there you go.
Very cool.
Awesome. So this is Mike
and Justin
signing off for XVGM Radio. It was such a nice, relaxing track.
Yeah, so two things that I want to say about this track.
Wait.
No. What's up?
Let me just... I'm entering into your mind via the podcast Mind Melder. And I'm going to predict that you're going to say Ferris wheels.
I'm sorry.
Damn. All right, I tried.